podcasts, audiocasts, audiobooks, mainly, not so much music. So I like it to be just a little icon on the status tray and the system tray, and a little window. I don't like a big media manager, so Audacious fits the bill to a T for me. Mm-hmm. That goes on every time. SM Player is simply the best front end for MPlayer. That's my default video player. I've got VLC as well, but that's a kind of backup for things that SM Player doesn't like. Gedit, which anytime I need a text editor, it's usually Gedit. Although Mousepad's quite nice as well. That's nice and light. Bluefish is extremely handy. I love the keyboard shortcuts. You know, the control, whatever. I have to look at the keyboard. I don't really thinking about it. It's like, I can read and sort of write HTML and CSS. Technically, I'm a coder, but I don't really think of myself as that. So yeah, I mean, anytime I'm doing any kind of HTML markup, Bluefish is handy. It's Control Alt P to add paragraph tags, and Control Alt I for list items and things like that. So yeah, Bluefish is particularly nice. Firefox, although to be fair, I'm actually going a little bit off Firefox. Firefox it's nice, and it's been my default for such a long time. But I'm finding now that it's sometimes websites, it's actually a lot of Flash, to be honest, but the memory just goes off the roof. Goes through the roof.
It's not just so.
I've been experimenting with Chromium.
Yes,
but I keep coming back to Firefox. It's like a pair of slippers, basically. I keep coming back to Firefox.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat hoping you would say you were moving to Chrome, because I moved to Chromium and
I have both installed myself. I once in a while experiment with Chromium, and I try to see what the neighbor has, so to speak. Trying to check the. I'm sort of trying to stay with Firefox, but sometimes I'm not too happy with the memory consumption or with the speed, and then I want to see what I could use instead. But I haven't.
What kind of baffles me? I don't know if it baffles me really. It's the idea that every web browser that you can think of, everyone's going to WebKit. You know, it's like Midori, which is quite nice. That's WebKit. Opera, closed source, but it's quite decent.
Is it using WebKit now? I don't.
Yeah,
I think they have their own,
yeah, Opera's WebKit.
Oh.
Then I've only ever tried Safari once or twice on XP, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different browsers that are all going WebKit, and I'm sitting thinking, what's WebKit got that Gecko hasn't? I don't know, and there must be a reason why the one browser that actually Flock is as well.
I'm not sure that's true. I'm just googling a few things. Sorry, I need to interrupt. But as far as I know, Opera has been working on a rendering engine since like the 90s, like quite early in the 90s, 97 or something. I'm not exactly sure, but as far as I can tell from here, they actually compete against each other. I mean, Opera used to be one of the most standards compliant browsers, and they have their proprietary components for it, and they actually compete against mostly against Chrome and Apple Safari, and I think that the WebKit team is trying to go past Opera, and they just kind of did recently. So,
To be fair, Opera does consistently come out very, very highly on the web standards compliance. They always score high on there, so you've got to give them props for that. It's closed source, but you've got to give them props for that. And I found that even Opera with adverts loads pages quicker than Firefox blocking the adverts. That says to me that something that in the rendering engine or something, it makes a difference somehow. I don't know how, but it's got to. And as far as the end user experience, Opera feels faster, and so does Chromium, and Midori and all of that. Firefox is getting to be a bit like a sort of wheezy old grandad, trying to run along and smoke a cigar at the same time.
They've just been bragging about 4
the Hannibal Smith of browsers.
But well, if Roy, if you're in agreement, because it's quite difficult to judge all sort of three viewpoints here, but we'll move on to our sort of final topics of the day. Unless you've got anything else you want to add, Roy or Gordon.
I was just going to end a sort of a small sentence. First of all, as far as I could tell, in 2010, I can find quite a few articles, and all of them seem to set apart Opera from WebKits. I'm pretty sure Opera is not using WebKits just yet, but I did move to KDE 4.5 recently in a couple of machines, and as far as I know, in KDE 4.5, they gave us an option. They could give you WebKit, which is an interesting story because WebKit is based on KHTML, which is a KDE project which Apple basically took and they extended this to the point where it kind of leapfrogged past the original project. So KDE wasn't entirely happy with Apple kind of taking their labor and trying to turn it into something with a different label, which is now a lot better than KHTML, and basically also discouraged the developers from making KHTML progress. So yeah, that's the story. I think so far as I think Opera is going to have to try and change, and perhaps Mozilla as well, because they compete against very collaborative and largely pooled project that's mostly WebKit, and Gecko is mostly used by Firefox. Opera has its own engine to maintain, and also with Explorer they kind of fall behind, and they find it very expensive now to develop the engine. So
yeah, sorry. Certainly on the Opera thing, I only use Opera on occasion. It's a sort of an extra way for me to check websites, just to make sure they look okay when I'm building them. And you know, Opera, the look of Opera, it's fast. It's very fast. But the look of Opera, the layout, has just never quite appealed to me. And the whole thing of for Opera to be seriously considered by me anyway, it needs to have proper plugins. I mean, this Chuck Norris thing is just, I mean, come on. You know, the Chuck Norris facts. I mean, come on. Get with the program. But apparently, I noticed a couple of weeks ago maybe, Opera started announcing they're doing a plugin system for Opera. It's like, woohoo! Get with the 20th century. At last they've figured it out. So hopefully, and at the end of the day, as each browser goes and tries something new, the others have no choice but to try and compete, or they'll lose. I mean, Firefox has had its ass handed to it basically by Chrome, essentially. So Mozilla have had no choice but to fight back and keep doing more stuff with Chrome. So with Firefox, sorry. But yeah.
Well, if everybody's happy, we'll move on to one of the last remaining topics, which, like I said a bit earlier on, came in just about 20 minutes ago for me, and I think it's quite ironic since we were talking about Windows and Microsoft breaking things, and it's to do with a subject which me and Roy have covered over the last, I think, 3 or 4 episodes, and we've had a lot to cover about it. It's the Windows Phone 7 topic. Myself and Roy have covered about all its shortcomings that have been reported, but I think we've probably hit upon the biggest shortcoming of all, which has been posted to me from the site productreviews.net, and I'll be linking that all in the show notes so people can read it themselves. But basically, Windows Phone and its flaws has stepped up a notch, and it's been reported now that if you don't have a micro SD card that's certified for Windows 7 Phone 7, it'll break it if you put it in the phone. I'll quote what Jason Mick has said. It says, it's reporting that AT&T has warned its customers to use only certified for Windows 7 micro SD cards. Trouble is, there's currently none available. When a user inserts a memory card, the Windows Phone basically breaks them. So that's more woe and bad news for Microsoft than its 40,000 sold Windows phones. I just wanted to throw that over to Gordon for a minute. I mean, I mentioned on the last... show about my experience of sort of my peers and everybody in phones, and it's all Android and Apple. Have you ever met anybody who is interested in the Windows Phone?
None at all. I'm sure they exist somewhere, like